Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is a bit of an update video on what's going on with my project. It's in a big turbo, so I got the front end apart. I still have to drain the coolant, get the radiator out, get this bar out, get that intercooler off, the radiator and the support, and then I'm gonna get the factory exhaust manifold off in the turbo. I'm thinking that, let's see if I can zoom in, that I'm going to remove the downpipe, the factory downpipe, and just run a straight pipe exhaust. But the problem is, the way I want to run it is directly down, but as you can see, there's a cross member, but there is a bit of a gap there. If I can point it through that gap, I can get away with it. So I'm going to see how everything fits. The other issue is the fuel line right here, so I'm going to have to heat wrap the exhaust, because the way that the exhaust housing sits and the downpipe from it does a nice 90, and it sits pretty close to this line here. I'm not sure why Audi ran it like this instead of coming on the inside there and just going right into the rail. Why did they run it next to the turbocharger? That makes no sense. Okay, guys, so as you can see, I've made a bit more progress. Got the radiator and the radiator support out. I've got pretty much all the coolant drained out of the system. Now, the new turbocharger, I'm gonna have to get this turbo off, get this manifold off. Now, let me see. Okay, perfect. So this guy here is this coolant return line. Now I have, it's an M14 thread. Let's see if I can get that in there. It's an M14 thread. Now I have a M14 plug that I can use there, but I also have, let's see if I can do this with one hand. I've got a sensor, a Holley sensor, that I can use. Now I've just gotten this loosely done up, and basically, obviously, once it's all tightened up, it'll be a lot smaller. Now I'm gonna have to enlarge this opening a little bit on the inside to make the sensor element fit in there, but that will basically sit in there like that. And that way I'll be able to read coolant temperature exactly as it is, way more accurate than way more accurate than the sensor that sits, you'll be able to see it, and it sits right there. You can see the green, and that's the connector for it. So that coolant comes out, I mean, that's the hottest coolant. It comes out at the top of the head, and then it goes into the radiator. And I mean, it's accurate enough, but I mean, if it doesn't work, then I always have that M14 plug, and I can use that. But so this is the deal. Next thing is to get the turbocharger off and manifold off, and the cat downpipe, and then do a bit of a mock-up and see how the new turbo is going to fit. So I'm gonna see you guys in a bit. Hey, what's up, you guys? So I got a bunch more work done. I got the intake manifold off, have the exhaust manifold off. I mean, this is what it looks like. The engine is in pretty rough shape. But I don't know if you're going to be able to see that in there. That made it worse. But basically, the valves look very clean. It's not going to focus too well. But the point is that internally it doesn't look too bad. That thermostat housing looks pretty bad, and the block does too. Underneath here, tell there's a whole lot of rot. Try to clean that up the best I can. So the exhaust doesn't look too bad. Some of these bolt nuts were rotted on, so I had to get this stud out too. That's when I'm missing 1, 2, 3. It's not bad. Now I have the exhaust housing here. It's kind of hard to do this with one hand. Let's give this a shot. Okay, sorry about that. Now I think he's pretty much planted. There is some gappage here, but it's not too bad. You don't have to do. I should have gotten that. So the downpipe doesn't really line up, which is alright because I wasn't planning on using it. The turbo sits pretty well. I think it's going to sit something like that. Now there's plenty of gap underneath of the rail, the framed rail. The exhaust housing sits pretty good. I wonder how the compressor is going to sit. It should have enough clearance. Same thing with the wastegate here. But other than that, she's looking pretty damn good. And this was a lot of work, a lot of rotten nuts and bolts. It's gonna come together. I gotta do a lot of cleaning, get a lot of this rust off. I'm gonna do the motor mounts next before I do any of the turbo bits. The engine looks like it's sagging because of these mounts. So I have 034 Motorsports street density. They're still soft rubber, but they're not a sack full of oil. So, which is what these factory engine mounts are. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get much more progress done. Now, I was able to test fit the VW thermostat housing. So it's going to have to sit like this. Now it does fit in the diameter, and the thermostat fits itself. So I'm going to be able to simplify the cooling system and get rid of the oil and coolant heat exchanger, this sandwich plate. And I'm going to use a Honda radiator, and that has got the same inlets and outlets. So that'll simplify the system. The radiator is going to sit somewhere down here on an angle in the fender. and that'll give me a lot of room, a lot of clearance in the front here to work on the car. And the length of the hoses will be nice and short. It'll minimize the amount of coolant. It'll come up to operating temperature much faster, and then I can play with fitting this with the thermostat. And if it overheats, take the thermostat out and just run it as is. And then to control that temperature, I can use a water pump, an electric water pump. And then I can pretty much just dummy this water pump out, just get rid of the fins, reinstall it back in, so it'll just become an idler fully. But yeah, so right now it's raining, can't get much work done. I'm gonna end the video right here. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned.